welcome to the Benevolent Business podcast. I'm your host, Hayden, and this week I've sat down with two entrepreneurs that featured on Dragon's Den. Natalie and Rebecca, the directors of Frida.
Just to have that opportunity to write something like that, it felt naughty. It felt like, oh my God, I could do this.
I suppose it was mad. And the fact that we did that on Kickstarter initially.
Yeah. Weird. And I don't think I even told my mum that I was putting an erotic story in it. She got her bag and she was like, hey.
I always thought, like, my confidence when I'm with Nat is so up.
Our lives need to take a real big turn. And I mean, like, burning it all to the ground and starting again. We know what we're putting on the line here, which it could be that our friendship is destroyed as a result of this. We knew that, and I was like, okay.
All that said, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
No. And that's it. I was about to say, I still would never say, don't do it with your friend.
I do think Tuka's right, though, but I probably shouldn't do this on this podcast, but I do think, that question back to you, how would you answer it?
Oh, no one's ever done that. Oh, I was watching Dragon's Den. Of course, I'm a huge Stephen Bartlett fan, and as soon as Frida came on, I was quite captivated by their pitch. Reached out to them and took a bit of time, but eventually we got talking, and I took a trip to Manchester. That was a long driving day. Let's get stuck into the conversation. Natalie, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on Benevolent Business. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, first question I want to dive into is when I was doing my research, and it talks about how you two came to be friends and how you met, with the sentence debating sexual politics in a canteen in Salford. Is it Salford or Salford?
Salford. Yeah.
Salford. So what's the backstory there?
Go on, Nat,
okay, well, we were at university at the time, and it was just one of those scenarios. It's like the canteen tables were really long. There was a bunch of us there. Obviously everyone's just kind of finding their feet. It was the early days, and I think we were basically either end, weren't we? And somehow the conversation started erupting. I feel like it almost happened for each of us organically. Sex kind of came, and then it was like this clash in the middle, and people just had varying opinions. But from one end of the table, I just remember going, yeah, I think the same as you. And she was like, yeah, me too. And we just had a very, I guess, more open opinion to the rest of the people that were around that table in terms of what sexuality is all about, how we as women, I think, embrace it. I'm sure there was something around that. I'm sure there was something to do with the fact that we were very much not behind closed doors when it came to talking about it, liking it.
Yeah, enthusiastic. Not fearful, I'd probably say. That's
And we just found, it was like, I found my crowd there. I found the person that gets it. Out of all these people that are there on an academic level talking about, like, no, you know, like this, or just getting really almost sort of uncomfortable in the situation, Rebecca and I at the other end of the table were like, I found someone who really is on my wavelength when it comes to this conversation point. And that's been a real thing that's kept us going, I think.
Oh yeah, it's been infused into everything, not just the business.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a huge, like in breaking down Frida, so there's that huge part of that openness and, like, as you said, being comfortable to express yourself in that manner. So I kind of like, within that, there's that, but also, of course, within Frida, there's a huge thing around sustainability and, of course, veganism. So you're both vegan. So did you become vegan at the same time, or is there a separate story of why are you vegan?
Yeah, separate story. My story is, I'll try and make it short.
Yeah.
But I went to and hopefully this person will watch this, I went to a waxing salon. I was about to go to Thailand. The person waxing me happened to be vegan, and she was saying, I'm not trying to convert you, but you know, you can watch these videos. And at the time, I was a complete meat eater. I'd never even thought about going vegan or vegetarian, really, apart from when I was younger. I think everyone has a teenage spate. I think that's because the universe is trying to tell you something at that age, and then we discount it when we get older. But I thought I'll probably never watch those, but I've got them now. It was New Year's Eve. I was on my own because my husband was doing a gig somewhere, and I had to work, and I was bored, and I love New Year's Eve. I love to celebrate, always do, so I probably would have been a bit miserable. And then all the bangs just started going off, and I looked out of my bathroom window. Couldn't see anything exciting, no fireworks, just like a frightened bird. And it was just like that. And I thought, right, I owe it to myself, I'm going to have to watch those videos because something's not right. sort of across the entire across the entire earth right now. All these loud bangs are going off for people that think it's fun, and underneath all of that is a load of pain and torture for all the animals underneath it. So I watched the videos, I started crying. My friend texted me, he said, "What's up?" I said, "I'm going vegan." My husband came home, he was like, "What has happened?" I'm going vegan. He went, "Oh God, well if you are, so am I." And that was
very
it.
supportive.
And that was it, yeah. The next day it was done. But it was brilliant because I was looking for, I've always been somebody who I would have said has conviction. And I felt like I was at a time in my life where I was actually getting a bit lazy and I wasn't sure what I stood for anymore. And I wasn't actively looking to find anything, but the fact that the next day, that was it. I went from one extreme to the other, and I just thought, oh, I've got my conviction back. I'm going to do this. This is not going to be a fad. This actually means a lot. I won't change this. And it was just so nice to have that conviction. And then I remember speaking to Nat and being like, you should go vegan. Because I thought about who, you'll know yourself, you have friends of a similar mindset. And actually, I think what I probably remembered about you is that you were very look from an environmentally friendly standpoint. You know, plastics, trying to do everything better, recycling. Yeah. Nat was way ahead of me on that sort of thing. So I'm thinking, well,
yeah.
And obviously, when you go vegan, you know, you want everyone to be vegan. You do. Don't try and force them, but you know your people. You know, you pick your battles.
Yeah.
And you were somebody who was open to trying it.
That's right.
And then actually, because we lived in different countries.
Yeah, I was living in Australia at the time, and I think that was where my eyes were open to the whole sustainability thing, and they were just a little bit ahead of the game on that. So I was already picking up on trying to do my bit environmentally, feeling like, wow, yeah, I don't know how I came into thinking about this. It was just always kind of a rumbling under the surface. And especially in Australia, I think they were just starting to show that that was not right. So I was already picking up on this, and when Rebecca kind of told me about this, I had gone through that spate when I was younger of being vegetarian for a long time, because my mum's friend had a pet lamb called Rosie, and it used to run up and down the garden like a dog, and it would chase you, and we fed it with a bottle. And I remember thinking at that time, I was only about 6 or 7, and I remember going, this is a lamb. And they were like, yeah, like a lamb that your mum makes for Sunday dinner. And when I realised that, because I never even enjoyed my mum's Sunday lamb, it was always really chewy. I mean, sorry mum, but she knew back then. I was the poster child for that, like, not a meat eater. And so I already knew that. And then I hit my teens, did the whole, you're just rebellious or whatever, and I ate meat again. But then when Rebecca came to me with that, I was like, okay, take that on board. And I remember us being in Morocco, and we had a big debate about it, and it was like, that was a big turning point for us in the business as well. But we were sat on a rooftop, and I remember us having a discussion about
I don't remember
chickens.
This.
Oh yeah,
right,
we were 2 bottles of wine in.
I'm nodding, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn something. Brilliant. Tell
2 bottles of wine in. I remember we were sat in. It was Darwin. We were in.
Okay.
We were on our own on that rooftop. We spent 2.5 weeks in Morocco, just Riyadh hopping, trying to find ourselves. And we were sat there, and I remember that conversation, and I was like, every argument you were able to shut it down. And I realised then, and you said, watch Cowspiracy.
Great.
And we'll talk about it later. And then that was it. And then I did the same, went back to Australia. My husband at the time, I said, listen, I think this is a good thing. He went, yeah, let's do it. And so that was that.
Interesting.
Open-minded men.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, God, thinking now, like so my girlfriend and I have been together for 4 or 5 years, and when we met, she was vegetarian. I was like pure carnivore. Like, I didn't have meat for breakfast, but like mixed grill was the meal I always had out. Everything was like as much meat as possible. I just was obsessed with it, and all I'd think about was like, and when it came to food, I'd just think about steak, and I wanted it as blue as possible. Like, I used to joke about the fact that it could still be mooing and I'd eat it. But
that's a very manly thing to say.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And it was someone that I used to say to my girlfriend, like, oh, I'm going to get you eating meat again. You're going to be eating meat again. And when I think back on it, I'm like, why the hell did you stick around? Because like now, I think if I was single and finding a partner, if they ate meat, I'd be pretty uncomfortable about the idea of it.
Are you vegan then or vegetarian?
No, so I'm vegetarian, trying to work towards being as vegan as I can, and a lot of it's just more about learning all things around diet, where I can get all the nutrition from, and make sure that I look after myself in the process. But also the pure laziness and easiness. I live at home with my mum, and she does the food shop, and it's very easy to be like, I'll have the vegetarian option.
Yeah.
And also, it's just a case of like, milk powder's in freaking everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
unnecessarily
hard.
so.
Yeah, it's like so many things that don't need to be non-vegan, but they are just are made with various dairy products for some strange reason. So I'm trying to be as vegan as I can, and it's a case of when I'm, I guess, responsible for my own shop and live on my own, I would be vegan in a heartbeat. But I'm like, I'm very focused on doing all kinds of different things, and I'm like, it's almost a hobby in itself to become vegan, to learn about it, that I don't think my brain could physically be able to handle another hobby. But and then I was someone I got to know, who this guy that was just even more obsessive than me, and he was, what was he, vegetarian, but I think more vegan. And this was a guy that went from, in his 20s, like stealing cars, doing every drug under the sun. He's got like a hole in his nose, but he was so intelligent. And however,
brand.
I was going to say,
he went from being 32 stone, drinking like every day, doing drugs every day, stealing cars, and was like, I'm gonna have a 6-pack in 4 years. And like all the people around him were like, what are you on about?
So you got his conviction from
I'd have these conversations with him, and I'd sit and listen, and he would just talk for hours on end, because he had the ability, he could study for hours. He would just sit there for 12 hours and just read books on philosophy, ancient religions, physics, chemistry. So he was like a qualified nutritionist. He was essentially like almost a Buddhist monk, but also like some kind of guru in business, in everything. He was just a genius, and he would just talk to me about what meat would do as it was processed through your body and how it would affect you. And I was like, I don't want to eat that stuff anymore.
I'd love to speak to that guy.
He's quite. I've tried to get him on my podcast, and it's just like,
he sounds fascinating.
He's a really interesting guy. But and like listening to him and then learning, and so again, coming back to the environment, my business was all around being environmental and sustainable, so I just couldn't justify eating meat knowing the detriment that it is to the environment.
You can't say you one thing and
exactly. So now I'm like, talk to my girlfriend, I'm like, we're going to be vegan together one day. But so coming back to your story, so you say about you literally went to go for a wax, and
no, it's not the prettiest of stories. It's not magical.
It's just like, that's quite an intimate experience, and can be quite uncomfortable, and it's like, they're there just like, whoosh.
I know.
Are you vegan, by the way?
But I don't know how we got onto it, but I know I was interested because also the more you talk, the less you feel the pain, so that's also a good thing. But I was interested in what she had to say, because I'd never had a chance to, in such close confinement where we've got nothing else to do now but sit and talk, I've never actually spoken to a vegan. So I think, I mean, you'll find this as well, like vegans are often demonized. I remember when I was younger, I remember like my parents and generally the community being like, they're weird
and pushy.
And to be fair, I did know a vegan back then. He was the brother of my neighbour, and he was, mohawk, quite frightening looking guy, but actually probably one of the most loveliest people. But generally there is a feeling that, or I say a stereotype that, and this is kind of what Frida tries to counteract a little bit, is that all vegans are, the purest of pure, hemp loving and sandal wearing. Some are. That's great. But I think if you genuinely want people to come over to veganism, you've got to be able to show the transition. It's not just one. You're not going to become one thing. Basically, but you eat more veg. You eat more veg. That's it.
That's it.
You just eat a lot of vegetables, and you're probably going to eat tofu that you've never had before. But I think once you get into veganism, it feels easy.
Yes,
but it does take time. But I know it's not a podcast about veganism.
No, I'm always curious to go into it, and it's quite interesting because the last 3 guests now are all around veganism. So a vegan restaurant, vegan charity. So it's interesting hearing, and everybody's story of how, I always ask, how did you become vegan? It's always really different. So it's interesting to hear people's different backstories.
I think looking back, I could see it coming, but I didn't know it was coming. I think I was being groomed for it. Terrible word. But I think I started to look into wanting to eat more vegetables and going plant-based. So actually, because I'd started cooking like that, it wasn't scary. So I think things were, and I think age could have had something to do with it, because when you're in your 20s, not always, but my experience was I was a much harder person in my 20s. Like, I could detach from farming and just generally animals suffering. I remember I had a friend of mine, she used to be with Peter, and she had such a great heart, and I remember me hardening because I didn't probably want to let the softer side of me out. And I think as I got past 35, the more nurturing side of me came out, and I think that was probably, how old was I when I went vegan? I'm trying to think.
You would have been younger than that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think I was. But I just know for me, 35 has been a big shift in general. I think I've changed in many ways.
Yeah.
So get ready for that. If you
Yeah.
You don't look 35. So.
No. When you said 35, I was like, how long have you been vegan then? So
I went vegan.
You don't look older than 35.
Oh, I'm 40. Yeah, I'm 40.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went, don't put that. No, you can't. Hey, it's great, life begins at 40. No complaints, anyone who's getting there. So yeah, I think I was 2016 I went vegan, but because of Corona, I don't know, or COVID, I know I get told off for calling it Corona, sorry everyone, I know it's just me and you think it's a beer, but yeah, I lose track of how many years it's been, but 2016 is when I went vegan.
Okay. So the other side of Frida Rome, obviously there's the vegan aspect, but also the erotic novel side. So I'm very curious as to that journey, and from, as I said, like I discovered you two on Dragon's Den, and Natalie, you spoke about writing them and saying, like, I'm going to write these stories. So do you both write them, or is it just you, Natalie?
No, I write them.
Okay.
I always get Rebecca's input, always with everything. We both do this. This is how we approach the whole business, it's a joint effort with everything. So I mean, when we came up with the concept, it genuinely was just like a harebrained idea to go, I think this is what I want to do with it. You know, we were just discussing, spitballing ideas. Rebecca said, we're going to make a handbag. And I went, and I'm going to put an erotic story inside. And she was like, I love it. And it was just one of those things that somehow it just felt like the right thing to do. And I was always a bit like, I was keen on creative writing, and I'd come from a background in film anyway, so I was always in love with drama and storyline regardless. That was something I had it was just always inside me. That was my heart. I wanted to do something with creativity. And so I just visualised it. I had this vision of what it might look like to have something like this inside the lining of the bag. And so and I put my pen to paper, and I didn't find it hard, because I think, like Rebecca said, we don't dress ourselves up as being these saintly, sweet, loving, pure people just because we're vegan. And as we discovered in our own lives about being just women with a bit of an interest in that area, it was a great opportunity for me to go, I want to do something that's a little bit different. And just to have that opportunity to write something like that, it felt naughty. It felt like, oh my God, I can do this, and just see how it goes.
Yeah.
So, it was one of them. We didn't know how it was going to be received. We just thought, surely there's other people like us. If we met the way we did and had that little bit of a
it didn't really matter, did it? Because I think one thing that we've figured out is that if we don't find it fun, it's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to happen with everything that we do. And so when Nat said that, I knew straight away I wanted to buy it, and I can only work on my own reaction to things. And then obviously, because of the way we launched the business, we kind of got to test it. But I suppose it was mad, and the fact that we did that on Kickstarter initially.
Yeah, so how,
and we thought nothing of it.
Yeah, we just thought nothing of it. Let's just do it.
How did that go down? So when I think of starting a business, you're probably going to talk to your friends, you're going to talk to your family, and I don't know what your relationships are like with friends and family, but if it's something that's quite open, but how did the conversations go of, so, hi friends and family, we're starting this business together. Oh, by the way, it's vegan handbags, great. Oh, by the way, there's going to be erotic novels inside the bags.
To be honest, it wasn't the erotic side that they didn't like, it was the fact that we were going to make handbags.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think one person's complained about the erotic, but most people, because we both had successful businesses before this, or lives, obviously you were a TV producer. So what was most difficult, I think, was people going, why are you giving up everything that you had going on before to suddenly start making vegan handbags? And also at that point, everybody is thinking, who buys vegan handbags? Well, obviously we're the ones that are vegan, so well, we do. So we're just making what we want to buy. But I think my cousin actually, after Dragon's Den, because I thought everybody knew, but my cousin did text me and he did say something, we're a Yorkshire family, so it was something like, I didn't know you put these mucky stories in bags or something like that. And then he started making jokes, obviously pervy purses and this type of thing. And I was like, oh, I thought you knew, but we've never really thought about it.
I don't think either. I know from my experience, I think with my family, they are born and bred, live down south, never really moved out of the same city. They've lived there all their lives. And I've been the one that always goes off and does random things. Like I moved to Australia. They thought, oh, she'll be back. 13 years later, it took me to come back. And then when I did, and I'm like, right, I'm going to start a business with Rebecca. And they were like, oh yeah, sure. You know, they just never think that I'm going to follow through on something. And then I kind of turn around and next thing they're like, I want one of your bags. So it's just weird. And I don't think I even told my mum that I was putting an erotic story in it. I don't remember ever actually revealing any of that to her. It just so happened when we got to this point and it was like, she got her bag and she was like, hey, looking inside, just figuring out that this was something we'd done. Yeah. So I think they just kind of took a blind eye to it. I mean, same with the veganism. They looked at me and went, oh, what? You're doing that now? They just kind of expect me to get on with it, come back when you're either got no money or you want to change again. That's how I kind of go with it. But
in fairness, I think we're quite shocked about how
yes, we are.
Like, really, you know, I know on Dragon's Den, for anybody who has seen it, you know, people, Sarah Davis thought, well, you've got far too many niches going on here. And yes, to the average business person, I suppose you have, but to my knowledge, I have never known anyone put an erotic story in a handbag. And we weren't doing it because we were trying to be the first. We literally were doing it because we didn't want to be fashion people. We were just starting a business that making things we wanted. And Frida Rome will go beyond handbags. It's handbags now, but it will go. And that was always the plan. It was never going to be just a handbag business. It's just we had to start with one product. And we'd happened to be in Morocco, and we've seen how things were done, and we knew that it had to be vegan and it had to be sustainable. So it just sort of organically became what it is today. But yeah, even this is the first time I've thought about it. But yeah, how crazy. Yeah.
No, I like it. It works. Yeah, I relate to you, Natalie, where you're talking about being the adventurous one in the family that just has these random ideas and sort of goes off, and that's definitely been my sort of characteristic in my family, of just being the kind of strange one that does these weird things and it's just walks in one day and is like, I want to be a professional skateboarder, and then next it's like, I'm going to start a business, and then a week later it's like, here's my vision for how I'm going to take over the world.
Exactly, yes.
Yes.
But in terms of like visions and stuff, so we've gone into different aspects of Frida Rome, but then how did like your friendship, as you said, you've kind of touched on there a little bit of, you've both had these successful backgrounds, so how did Frida Rome come to be, and what's the name? And also, like, you talked about both of you having successful careers, and so there's that element of walking away from a successful career to I don't know which person wants to start first, but yeah, how did Frida Rome come to be?
Yeah, I just thought for a long time it would be a good idea. So we'd always operated quite separately, hadn't we?
Yeah.
We've never, it probably never really been discussed. And then I think as we were getting older, I must have said to you, I think we should start a business together, or I don't know how serious, but I honestly thought we should. And the reason being was just because of the way that we would be when we're together. So obviously Nat lived in Australia for 13 years, so we would holiday, we'd meet across the world, New York, wherever, Marrakesh,
Paris.
Yeah, and we would just, as soon as we met each other, it didn't matter how many years we hadn't seen each other, it'd be like sparks flying. And I always thought, like, my confidence when I'm with Nat is so up. I mean, yes, we're on holiday, but, but it's so up that I don't feel like there's nothing I could do with me and Nat together. I don't feel like there's a wall we couldn't knock down. But obviously these are all, and you'll know it yourself if you're a bit of a visionary, these are all just ideas that are in the back of your mind. You're sort of having this conversation with yourself, but you're never really present for that conversation. It's only when you actually go ahead and do it that you're like, well, yeah, I've said all that, I thought all of that. So yeah, for me it was a combination of knowing that I thought doing something with Nat could be something special and should be done, and I didn't know why, even though I knew that was a subconscious feeling, because conscious thought would suggest don't work with your friend, that's going to be a nightmare, that's never going to work. But definitely subconsciously I was being pushed towards that. And then
I think for me it was, I think you touched on this just now, we hit a particular point in our ages, and I think we both, again, from opposite sides of the world, would have had this underlying gut feeling something needs to change. And we didn't really talk about that as friends. We sort of just kept going, doing what we were doing, but I knew, and we came together eventually, and it all came out that both of us had this absolute like gut feeling our lives need to take a real big turn. And I mean like burning it all to the ground and starting again. Genuinely, just I don't know why. And I think for me,
we were tired doing what we were doing.
Yeah, we were tired with our lives in where we were at and everything.
And if only we could have just been satisfied. But some people aren't like that. And it's an absolute torture. There are people that are very happy with their job and their family and their lives and just keeping it steady, and I get it and I love it, and I love to see people do that. I love to see people doing that. But there are the others of us that will just never be able to settle. And when you are one of those people, you don't realise it for such a long time, but basically the minute everything gets settled, you start ripping it up, you want to make it harder, you want to start challenging yourself, you're looking up at what's up at the next level. Like you almost, and that's what the problem was with me when I started Like My Conviction. I'd got to a great place, everything was sorted, I didn't need to do it, my life was easy and comfortable and beautiful, so I was going to have to tear it up. So that's and I do think that's entrepreneurial spirit. I think entrepreneurial spirit is when you are more dissatisfied with not pushing and trying than you are with anything else, basically.
With joy, with pure ignorance and bliss.
Yeah, that's incredible, because the amount of like humans innately just don't like change and don't like to rock the boat, and that's like what I find in business when it comes to trying to approach people. Like you're talking about having these kind of like visceral needs and wanting to work together and wanting to do something. Like I have that, and I will like express an interest in collaborating with people in some way, whether it's like co-founding together or like taking two complementary businesses and like let's merge, or let's acquire the other, and let's create something massive out of this. And people kind of feel excited by it, but then when it actually gets down to the details, it's that, oh no, this is different, this is change. I know at the moment my business can feed the family and it can pay the rent, but if we do this interesting new idea,
it's frightening. It is frightening, and there are no guarantees. And it is frightening, but I am so pleased we went for it.
Me too. And I think
and we've still got a long road to go, but I'm just so pleased I didn't choose safe.
But I knew I also needed the camaraderie of Rebecca. I needed that partner to know that when I did get those moments of like, what have I done, what am I doing, that she's there in the boat with me, and we're gonna shut up, let's go, we've got to keep going. So it was, as much as it's also very much getting into business with your best friend, we weren't shy from the fact that it was like, we know what we're putting on the line here, which it could be that our friendship is destroyed as a result of this. We knew that, and I was like, okay, I've got to factor that in. But I think that has been the best part of it as well, is knowing that I've got this teammate next to me, that when it starts to get a bit tough, that other person doesn't let you fall.
Has it tested your friendship?
Yeah and no.
Yes and no, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been easy. It's not been a bed of roses, but I think because of the kind of people that we are, when it is, we quite like it.
Yeah, we do have a little ruckus, and then it's like, that felt good.
So yeah, we will. Like, we're not the same people. We do have different ways of working, very different. I'm all about strategy, planning. Nat's all about, I don't know if you've ever come across human design, sorry to get all woo-woo, but Nat's a generator, I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm okay with pushing forward, but I'm not great at all of the little steps that it takes to make that a really neat parcel and make it all work. Whereas Nat can do all of that. She wants to go step by step and make it all right. And I've noticed, whether or not this is true, I'm not a human design lover. This is just a little thing I've noticed, that all of the most successful progressive relationships I've had in my life have been with someone who is a generator, and I'm a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
Feel free to get rid of that.
we used to say that it was in a sillier like vibe, but we used to say Rebecca comes with all these pearls and I'll string them together and make the necklace.
Oh, that's quite wonderfully put.
That's how we're making things, yeah. So yeah, it has tested our relationship. We will argue. We're two different people. We had spent 13 years meeting every couple of years and having fun on a holiday. But I think we are and we have been really good at just getting it out.
Yeah.
But it took some getting around. So Nat's a bit more emotional than me when it comes to, and I'm an emotional person, but how would you say I am? Pain in the arse.
It's like you don't want your eyes on the prize, and you don't want to let anything get in your way of what will effectively how do I put it? If it's not going to get us anywhere, she won't address it until later. Whereas I might come in and go, oh, but the feeling of it, and she's like, put that aside because we have to focus on that. It's very much a lot of like, she will be up there keeping an eye out on where we're heading, and I'll just be on the back end trying to fix the wheels
before they fall off.
And I'll go, but there's one down the hill. And she's like, don't worry, we'll carry on with 3. It's fine. We'll just keep going. But
it's actually quite funny because when we started in a co-working space, we would bicker across the table. But because of the type of people we are, we're both very private. So we would start bickering, and it would be quiet, and then someone walked past and like, morning. Hiya. Listen. So we just found our way. I think one of the things that helped was right back on in the early days, I think because with you doing a lot of the creative writing and things like this, I think creative people struggle with feedback and criticism or anything like that. And I would just be, I want what is best for the company. So I'm only saying things on that level. Not that it was ever really about the writing, but it was that between you, I think, and you're quite a great presenter, actor, all those types of things. And I think you've got that artistic sort of,
I'm putting my heart and soul into it, so I'm putting myself out there a lot.
Yeah.
I remember those early days. I remember it feeling like, you would tell me though, very much so of like, I only want the best. So unless you're going to give me the best, don't bother, because it will constantly be like, no. And so it actually was a really good learning for me to be able to actually tweak and craft myself, because if I hadn't been critiqued, I would never have pushed myself harder to go, actually, no, it's not good enough. So that was good having that feedback, even though initially it was a bit like, oh, you're bruising the ego, you're hurting me.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's ego, isn't it? And I think that's one thing we've both lost over time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
A lot of the ego's gone away.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you have to drop it. You do. You need a little bit from a bit of a fight now and again when you're about to go up against something, but generally I think that'll be what it is.
Yeah. I also think that we found where we were initially at loggerheads about the ways we work, actually it complements each other, and that's one thing that we never had to compete for anything, because one was good at this and the other one was better at something else. So it was always like that's been the balancing act for us to realise, well, when I'm not, I'm like, oh god, I'm not very confident about this part. I know Rebecca can handle that, and vice versa. So it's that's important.
All that said, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
No, and that's it. I was about to say, I still would never say don't do it with your friend.
Because we have lost certain things because of it, and maybe we'll get them back, and that's because we're at the early stage of our business. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress, it's a 24-hour process.
Yeah.
You'll know yourself running a business. So when we try and have fun now, we have to, it's just not the same, is it?
No.
Unless we really, because we're always going to be the two girls wearing it on our shoulders.
Yeah.
So I think that is one thing that we have had to sacrifice, and you know, I think later on down the line that might be easier again, or maybe it's just getting older. I don't know.
Maybe, but I do think you're right. I think because
It's always been a lot of fun. Always been a lot of fun.
We'll get into a room now, and because we always know that there's a conversation that could lead back to business, that is difficult, that you can't look at one another and just be like, "Ah," and just go mad, because you go, hang on a minute, we also have to think, and to really park that is a tricky thing to do. So I do agree. And I don't think it's gone forever, but yeah, maybe in the same respects we are growing up, we are getting older, so it might be a different version, a tamer version of what it was before. But
I just wouldn't recommend it, because I know it is difficult, and I think we've been quite lucky to bring it about how we have. And I've worked with other people in the past, and having seen other people work with friends, it's so hard, but we actually haven't made it that hard.
No.
So yeah, don't do it, kids.
It's phenomenal just sitting here listening, because like even as you're answering the questions, and it just occurred to me, like, here I haven't really got to do much. This is like the easiest podcast I've had to record. But you two, it's like your brains are almost working together, because as soon as one person stops the sentence, the other person's got the following point.
Yeah.
And
well, you picked up on my point that my brain had wandered off and thought,
yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank God.
And yet,
she's
got it. Yeah.
You don't talk over each other at all. It just seems to perfectly work that as soon as one person goes quiet, the other person knows exactly. It's
Was it funny to watch?
It's pretty cool. It's
Brilliant.
I like it. But on what's the Frida Rome? Where did we spoke about before we started recording? Frida Rome. So it only occurred to me as I was like stalking through the Instagram earlier today that it's Free to Rome, Frida Rome. But you said like there's all kinds of meanings behind it. So what is the name?
Yeah. So this
obviously it's not your names, because that's what I was confused about.
No, this came about. We were working it out over FaceTime, or was it Skype back then? I don't know. Before everyone was using Zoom, it was before that.
I was on the sofa. I remember that.
Probably FaceTime.
Yeah.
And we were throwing things backwards and forwards. And when we started Frida Rome, before it became Frida Rome, we weren't sure where we were going. And because we were friends, we very much wanted to slowly keep going with it, prototype it between us, and let's see if we burn out and get bored. Because I think I'm probably a bit like you. I think of a good business idea. I think it's going to be the next big thing, and I want to do it. But usually those ideas soon burn out when reality hits. This one carried on. So we wanted a strong female influence. I'd actually just watched Salma Hayek in the Frida Kahlo film. And there's a scene where she walks into this market, and I was like, that's Nat. That is Nat. Like, there's just the spirit of it. Did she nick an orange or something like that?
Yeah.
Whatever she does, and I didn't know much about Frida Kahlo before I watched that film, but she's a vivacious character, and she's just got what I would call the spirit of what we have as well. So strong female influence. So we're knocking around Frida, and then Rome as in the empire. And then that's going, and it's like Frida Rome, because obviously we want the Frida Rome sort of muse, the Frida Rome person is free to roam. She's independent, freedom's a big thing. And then Nat started joking, and it's like all the animals will be free to roam. And we were joking backwards and forwards, and I just went, that's it.
That's the name.
That's it. This is it. Yeah. And again, it wasn't because I thought it was good. It wasn't because I thought it was right. It was that gut feeling. We can carry on talking, but I already know this is it.
That's cool. There is so much to it. Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Even when we saw the logo so much, it's it's basically the name, but we were like, that's it. There's no
one shot at a logo. We went, done. and
that's cost effective.
The guys who were doing our logo were wanting us to experiment and do more, and we sort of allowed that, but we were like wasting your time. Just it's done. Give us what we want. Yeah.
That's incredible. Two minds come together, and you instantly there's that. You look at the logo. We're done. We're happy.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I love having that feeling now.
Yeah,
but again, that's only come with age, I think. But it's just from listening to my gut. I don't know if you get this yourself, but you just get a feeling. And now when I hear other people talking about things, I'm like, don't even discuss it anymore. That's it. It's done. I feel like we did this week, but I don't know what it was on.
We have.
oh yeah, I've got a new idea. Great idea.
Yeah, that was
that's
it.
gonna be
I was
it,
going
and
to
that's
say, I
it.
know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about it, so we've got it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
So how did you choose your target audience? Because so this is like reflecting back on the Dragon's Den scene, and it was Tuka, I think, that mentioned about that when he was kind of critiquing the business model and saying like that mid-range is really hard to sell to, really hard to break into. People either want a £40 handbag or they want a £4,000 handbag. So in looking at your brand and looking what it is and what it stands for, and that as you are in that like subpar niche as it is, I feel like your brand the handbags could be £4,000.
They could, they absolutely could, but we don't want to be that.
Yeah.
We've never wanted to be that. I certainly didn't. I don't think you did.
No. We
wanted to be in a range where you're getting something a little bit special. It's not, £30 accessorised handbag, no offence, accessorised. And actually, I would love to bring the price down a little, but unfortunately, because of the way we are choosing to do things, it's impossible. So we actually don't charge as much as what we should for our bags, because we are trying to alter that we're trying to keep it as cheap as possible for the customer, but cheap's not the word. But I know that sort of 295 range, even maybe if we could bring it down a little bit, but the fabrics that we use, the way that we manufacture, the way we choose to make a bag that is like no other bag out there in terms of what it does, it's all expensive, and it costs us to make those bags more than what I would say 90% of people would even pay for a handbag just for us to have it delivered to us. And that is the price you pay for working with innovative materials, being a small brand, of course. And we were initially working within the UK, and now we're in Spain. But yeah, it does come at a price.
Yeah, and I think, yes, it is a niche that we're in regards to it being a vegan product, but we've always tried to, again, it's that bridging of the gap, like Rebecca said earlier. If you want people to come over to that other side, you've got to present it in a way that it feels like it's an attainable thing, or it's something that other people that aren't vegan do want, because they like the style, not just because it's vegan, just because of the erotic element. It's like, we knew ourselves in that transitioning period going vegan. I think eventually most people will, but it is also holding on to those aspects of what you loved about style, design as well. And I think that trying to marry those things together is partly where we've positioned ourselves in that market. It's about going, or actually you don't just need a vegan bag. That at the time, especially for us, we found that there was just nothing that really spoke to us as just people that liked something that looked a bit different, a bit masculine, maybe a bit edgy, so it's all of those aspects as well. Is trying to find the person that also feels that way, that they're not just being targeted with a vanilla coloured, simple bag that you'd find on the shelves of John Lewis. Again, no.
I do think Tuka's right though. I do think he's right.
Yeah,
it is a market you should never aim for. Yeah. But I don't know why it is that people are against it so much, because I would have put myself as someone in that market.
Hope you're enjoying the conversation. I'm just interrupting with, we don't have any official sponsors on the podcast, so I'm going to use this opportunity to shout about some benevolent businesses that I see in the world, that I use myself personally, that I want to encourage you to try out and just get the best out of what businesses have to offer. So I'm going to be shouting about Huel. I became a hooligan a few months ago, and it was actually because they sponsored Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett, and Stephen Bartlett was always screaming about it and talking about it. So yes, of course, there's huge benefits. I tried it out purely based on the idea that as I'm trying to become more and more plant-based, and I'm vegetarian but I'm trying to be more vegan, Huel is a great way for me to kind of increase that, as it's completely plant-based, it's vegan. I don't use it as a meal supplement, but I do use it as a way to just get more protein and more vitamins and minerals into my diet on a daily basis. Before I talk to you about the biggest benefit, I'll mention some of the downsides. Really is, I started by trying the ready-to-drink Huels, and I have to be honest, they are disgusting. They taste far. Anyone that can say they taste nice, I just can't agree with. Don't understand how you can enjoy the taste of it. Something must be wrong with your taste buds. But I pursued, kept trying, and in the end I bought the bags where you mix it yourself. I got the black edition with the extra protein. Those I do get along with a lot better, But do be prepared with that. It is something that the taste isn't there, but the health benefits are definitely there when you actually go through the ingredients and what it's full of. It is incredible what they can fit into one drink, being 400 calories, despite the fact it's 40 grams of protein. It's got 26 vitamins and minerals in it. And the biggest benefit I've seen is my hobby skateboarding. Straight away I found if I drank a Huel, I was suffering a lot with like fatigue, so I would go skate, come home, and the next day like my thighs would be aching, legs are aching all over just from like wearing myself out. Yet I found if I drank a Huel, because of all the nutrients I'm getting and the extra protein of course, my legs were fine. My recovery time went from like a day or two to 0. I didn't need any recovery time. I could go skate day after day. And in fact, I'm in Jamaica right now on a 6-week trip volunteering. I've had brought Huel with me, which again helps out massively. It's just a way for me to boost the nutrients I'm getting on a day-to-day basis. And I literally have run out the last few days, and I've noticed my legs are aching where I'm trying to skate, but because I'm not getting my Huel each day, I'm aching. So I can't wait to get home, get a fresh batch. Check it out for yourself, let me know what you think, if you like it, if you don't. And of course the other thing I will mention is I did talk about the taste and not liking it so much. However, you can mix it up, create all kinds of different shakes and whatnot. People have done some incredible things, so check them out on Instagram. You'll get all kinds of inspiration there. Back to the podcast.
So, but I love new brands. I don't love heritage brands. I don't want a name that everyone knows all over my bag. So I literally always thought about it from how I would have placed it, and I did buy bags in those categories. But yeah, I know where he was coming from, and it's a good point, but it doesn't matter for us because it's not actually making a difference for us. And I think if we commit to it, and we're committing for all the right reasons, we're not putting it in that bracket to make extra profit. We're putting it in that bracket because we want to be able to make the product that we want to make. And I think sometimes you can't cut corners on that. And I think our customers will probably be behind us with that one.
Yeah.
So it's like lowering the barriers to entry, so it's more cost effective you can be. But then part of me wonders, to challenge the idea a little bit, is when I think of like these brands that are like Gucci, Louis Vuitton and that kind of thing, is like when you think of the affordability and that barrier to entry, but sometimes the fact that they are that much more unaffordable, it puts them on this pedestal as they're more recognisable. And also like there are many people that I would say probably 90% of their customers can't actually afford their products, but they buy them because it is that status symbol. But then I wonder, I think, why not take advantage of that opportunity? And I feel like you might even be able to use it as a marketing strategy to be like, this is the most expensive vegan luxury handbag you could buy. But then I think also, to counter my own argument, there's something else that comes with that, and it's this, you're taking away the authenticity of what your brand is, because it's then about this money thing and it's all about profits. And so I agree. I suppose
there's no guarantee that we won't go down, because we don't know what we're going to make next, and really we come up with a design before we come up with a price. So obviously a lot of businesses in the fashion world will be like, it's got to be made for this price. We don't work like that. So I really want to make an amazing champagne case.
We've been talking about that champagne case.
I don't know if anyone will buy it. I don't know if we'll ever make it, but if we choose to make that with the types of materials that we do and everything, it'll be an expensive number. It just
and your customer base, who's going to buy a champagne case? It's not going to be like your average person.
Exactly, but they should, because it's great for a party. Basically, it's like a handbag where your champagne and your glasses go in, because this is what we do. So, rightly or wrongly, every place I go, in fact, you're lucky I've not got them today, I have champagne coupes in a box. I go around to people's houses and I pull them out, and people go, "You've not honestly brought your own glasses out here." I'm like, "Yeah, because I didn't know if you had any champagne coupes. Have you got champagne coupes?" "No." "Oh, brilliant." well, here we are with them. So, I think the thing is, as much as we want it to be attainable, because we also want to be able to have the fun aspect and have a community around us as well, and not be pretentious, overly so. But there is a certain element to the brand that is, luxury, because we want, when somebody buys a bag, it's more about the feeling that they get buying the bag. No one buys a bag because they desperately need to put their things in something. They already own something that does that. They buy a bag because they think, and we want them to feel like this with us, that if I wear that, that represents me. And so what we're trying to do, and as I said, it's not necessarily about bags, we'll be making all sorts of things, is that when somebody comes to Frida Rome, they walk away with something and they have a spring in their step. And they're like, yes, you know, and they go and have a laugh and they show the story to people, whatever it may be. Now it's bags, but we want people to put them on and just love that they've got something that is, you know, as cheeky as they are, but looks great, you know, as we say, sophisticated on the outside, naughty on the inside. And as vegans, it's really hard to come across someone that says that.
But then, so when I was like doing more research, one thing I came across is when you actually go to purchase a bag, you can have the saint or sinner, which I thought was really cool. Actually, the idea of saint and sinner, that was really cool, like marketing term. But then I thought, not having the story in the bag kind of takes away from one of the most standout components of the brand. So I was curious, how come you've got that option?
Well, it kind of again was organic. I'll let you go on this one.
It's fine. I mean, funnily enough, it was an organic thing, but I do recall we had a friend of ours go, I'd love to buy that bag for my mum, but he went, I just don't think I can give her something with a bit of sex in it. And we went, absolutely, well, we get that. So I mean, we are potentially looking at an offering in the Saint bag that isn't just without the erotic story either. So because it is about evoking a feeling, as Rebecca's mentioned. So really, for us, we just knew there were going to be those circumstances. Yeah. Mothers buying for young children, or you know,
we have a lot of mothers buying for daughters.
Yeah,
we have
brothers buying for sisters.
Yeah.
And they just think, perhaps not. I mean, don't get me wrong, the majority of people love that aspect. Yeah. So there isn't as many on the Saint side, but it is one of those things that we just thought we just have to allow for that.
I also think in the early days as well, we didn't know how popular it was going to be. And it was also like, we didn't want to scare people off that really liked the bag, because obviously a lot of what we're doing is about giving people an easy transition to veganism without feeling like they're having to compromise on things. So we were kind of aware of that at the beginning, but obviously we became acutely aware of it when people wanted it for their mum. I mean, that was just,
I think that'd be a huge marketing thing of saint and sinner. Literally, like the second you land on the website, you're a saint or a sinner.
That's exactly what we're doing.
That could be so good, and I think that could be a huge thing. And
we'd love to be able to do that and get people on a journey going either way. But like we have no dreaming big is not a problem. Time is an issue. Time is an issue. But yeah, you will be seeing that.
Oh, good. I look forward to it. What's been the biggest unexpected discovery since starting this together for each of you?
Ooh.
So there's a lot of uncertainties when you start a business. So I'm curious whether it's in the manufacturing, whether it's working with a friend, whether it's managing cash flow and stuff. But what's been the
tricky one?
Biggest unexpected?
I would say our resilience.
Yeah.
I'm surprised we've got what we've got in us.
I was about to say, to wake up every day and actually just have the want to keep going. You do sometimes feel like you're in the face of it, and it's like how it can be just put myself to bed and wake up the next day and carry on is one aspect. But the other one I think that is really important, and this comes back to how differently we work. I was... we'd mentioned I worked in TV, which is very stressful, constant. You feel like you're just always up against it. And I never allowed myself that time to enjoy my life in a way. I would always put work first. I would often miss out on things because of that. And it wore me down to the point where it was like, this is crippling my personality as a result. Don't get me wrong, I still had a great load of fun in there still, and I know a lot of the times I would escape to go and meet Becca in other countries, but this job has definitely reminded me why we did this in the first place, and that was that we wanted something where passion and fun came first, and that, allowing myself those moments, sometimes it's when we put shut the laptop down, decide we're having fun, the tills ring over and over, and you think it's an energy, it's a feeling, it's a difference. It's that moment when you realise it doesn't always have to be about being on it and being hard work. Or you never rest, you never have fun.
We're not your traditional YouTube entrepreneurs. We have frozen margaritas in the office.
Yeah.
We'll have mimosas.
At 10 in the morning.
We'll dance. In fact, we danced before we came here with Ethan.
Your point there about that, your resilience and waking up in the morning being able to crack on, that's got to be, for me, that's the thing I always missed in being a solo founder, is on those days, it's got the biggest benefit, although there could be the altercations, the challenges, the arguments and whatnot, but on those days when you're just like, why am I doing this? Why don't I give up?
Yeah.
Having that co-founder to be like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that like you've said that, but I'm actually going to throw it straight back to you before I answer your question. But do you feel like you can't give up?
I don't know if it's a sensation of can't give up, but it's in my head. I've had days when it's just like the I don't even know, the shit that's just being thrown at you.
Yeah.
But it's in my head. There's just not. It's not a not that it's not a viable option, but it's just it doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah.
It will adapt. It will evolve. So like my business, I went through a whole collapse, lost all my staff, built up, had like 9 people working with me, lost all of them. The ones I didn't lose, I had to get rid of because I couldn't support it. And now, it's only in the last couple of weeks, different opportunities come along where I could be building a company again. But even through all of it, it's never a case of give up. It's just a case of it will adapt and evolve to what it is. And so my business went from being this like trying to build this like organisation, this corporation, to becoming a lifestyle business. So like right now, I've just got this lifestyle business. I work 3 mornings a week, and then I just have passions and hobbies and stuff. Whereas it could alter and change again. But yeah, I can't. It's it will always just be. I can't imagine not having a business in some way.
Yeah, I just recognised. I only asked you because I recognised it, because I know sometimes I feel like on the really difficult days, or when something's gone wrong, or it might have gone wrong for months. You know, any sane person will be like, just give up. But there's a part of me, and I know you're like, why won't I just die? No matter how many times I get punched in the face on this.
Yeah.
Why do I keep getting back up? It's like failure is not an option, and I just when you said that, I thought you must have the same sort of thing. Is that I have no option, but I can't lay down.
When you reflect on business though, so like all of those challenging days and stressful times, but if I was going to have a conversation with someone about my company and like just my business acumen and what I've learned over the years, all the good days, the days where I don't know, we suddenly made more money than we'd ever thought we'd make in a day, or whatever it was, or best month ever, doesn't really matter. It's the shittest times, the hardest times, when people are like, tell me the biggest things about what you've learned in business and that. It'll be like, I had a client that was out to destroy me. I've had multiple clients that are out to destroy me. Like they would probably have a party on my gravestone. And that I learned more than anything from those clients. The clients that pay me on time, always smile, are always pleasant, easy to deal with, don't learn anything. They're just refreshing.
Well, they're great though.
They're amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'd love to have more of them.
We love those people.
Yeah, but the ones that are just, you have hard customers, but I've had like 2 clients, I'd say, that literally want to destroy me and put energy, money, time and effort and collaborate to destroy.
People are just nasty.
Yeah.
They just are.
And they don't think they are though. It's they're doing what's right, and they're the good guys. Everyone thinks they're the good guys.
In their head.
Yeah. But that's what you learn from.
I don't know what you've done to them, maybe. I assume whatever you did was not worth destroying you, but you know, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, how bizarre.
Yeah, but that's what I think, and like you have those horrible days, but they're the things that in 10 years' time. But you've like this year I've had the worst time financially. I made some very bad mistakes, and I've never known stress like it, financial stress, and having like tens of thousands of pounds on the line and waving goodbye to it in a click. And I'm going through it and I've got better with it, but I just know that in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, I'm going to laugh about it. I'm going to be like, the reason I've made, I'm sure and I'm certain that in 30 years time, I'll be like, I made £1 million here because of, I lost this money here that seems insignificant now, but because of that lesson, I made £1 million
I love your blind faith. It's what we all need. It is what we all run on. You don't know how it's going to, end up, and I think if you are running a business where you know how it's going to go, it's going to be a really boring business, and it's probably not going to be anything different. But yeah, that's one of the things I do love about business is one day we had no idea we were going to end up on Dragon's Den. No idea. We didn't apply for it. We happened to get an email from the researcher who asked us to apply for it. But at no point in my life plan, was there going to be going on Dragon's Den?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I always think, like, if you just pan out of, like, this, is it philosophical or whatever the term is, but just, we're literally on this floating rock in the middle of nowhere. That's,
I know, why are we doing any of it?
And our
Why are we doing
existence
any
is
of
a
it?
big,
When you start going into the big thoughts and the big questions,
Yeah.
you're like,
All right, you
oh my God,
convinced
nothing.
me. It's over.
Yeah.
Let's fly out tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a stat that I always remind myself of that I kind of live. I don't know. It's always something interesting that's in my head, and it's your chance. Do you know what your chances of existing as you, as the individual you are today? Your chances of existence, what it is.
Go for it.
Like
What is
millions to one, isn't it? Like,
1 in 400 trillion.
Oh,
there we
wow.
go.
So for you to exist as you are,
So we really are unique.
yeah, exactly. For the man and woman that came together to create you, had to do it at the exact moment, and it had to be that egg, that sperm cell, but also the people that created them. The people, literally, the entirety of the universe's existence had to happen the exact way it did for you to exist. I'm just like, if I have like ludicrous ideas and people will be like, you're never gonna, there's like a 1 in a million chance that will work, and I'm like, well, I've already beat
It's not bad odds.
Yeah, exactly. I beat, like, the odds of me existing are 1 in 400 trillion, so if this idea is a 1 in a million, it's it's easy. But I'll come on to the final questions. I feel like I could have this conversation all night long. The final questions, the closing tradition of this podcast. The first question is, what is one thing that exists within the world today that you hope will one day be eradicated?
Meat eaters. Meat eaters.
Meat eaters.
one thing in the world that exists today that I hope will be eradicated.
No offence. Not dead meat eaters. You won't go vegan. Sorry.
Everybody to transition.
Yeah.
Oh.
Terribly put.
Yeah. Oh God, that's a tough one. So many. There's so many.
I've got a vision
Cancer.
of this video.
Cancer. Just get rid. Just go. Cancer.
2 very different answers.
Yeah, I wouldn't even agree with that either. I think I'm more nihilist than you are. I don't think I'm that into humans. I'm not against them, but I look at how we play out. I do think, I probably shouldn't do this on this podcast, but I do think, how foolish does one have to be to destroy its own environment?
Well, I think,
madness.
to some extent, Mother Nature does take over and goes, come on, you're gonna, and in some respects, I think that's also a thing. It is a way of just dealing with the masses in its own effect, because we are slowly destroying it ourselves anyway. So maybe that's another aspect of, like, you know, something also fighting back. But if I had my choice, I would like to eradicate cancer.
I feel like I could answer your question a million times.
Yeah, there's so many options.
It'd be so negative.
But it'll get down to minutiae of people. They'll start knowing who it is.
No, I feel like for me, I would just love to get rid of any meat eating. I think it's on this scale of people, it's pointless. I have no issue with people who want to hunt, or live off the land. I'm okay with that. But yeah, all right, let's say factory farming. That's easy.
I was going to say, it was probably for me, it would be more the cruelty aspect.
Yeah.
It's not
Milk,
even for
get rid of that too.
Yeah. If anything, the milk and dairy industry is worse than it is for slaughtering the animal, putting it out of its misery.
Yeah,
it's like
that's
that
pretty gross.
doesn't compute to some people.
That question back to you. How would you answer?
Yeah.
Oh, no one's ever done that. Oh wow, it's actually quite hard to answer.
Well, no, you know how
Damn.
it feels.
I'm sorry, I've just realised the pressure that everyone feels. Ooh.
Is it that client that?
I think it's just because it feels relevant. I suppose it's always just in the moment of what feels the most relevant. But I'd love to eradicate this component within the human brain to identify the negative first and to focus on it. And I feel like if I was to go through Instagram and just look at what comments are, if someone does, I don't know, some big news outlet puts a post up and you read the comments, and I just remember one example that sticks out in my head is with Starlink, so SpaceX, or like Elon Musk with SpaceX and Starlink. And so when it comes to a country in catastrophe, Starlink will send out satellites so that there's free internet access, so then people can communicate. And it's like, this is free, just communicate. So it did it with Ukraine, did it with Iran. And yet you'll go through the comments and people will just hate on it and be like, oh, look, another billionaire's doing something to control people. And I'm like, they're literally just doing something to help. And it's like, the world doesn't need your negative opinion on it. So I think just if I could eradicate that negative bias so that people always thought, and just as well, I think it do a lot to help people's interactions with each other. If you didn't assume the worst in people and instead paused and thought, I don't agree with what they just done, but I'll remove that negative. Like, they probably did it for this reason and it's more positive.
Yeah,
so I think that's
it's
what
like closed-mindedness you're not into. But I agree with you. People do come at things often from a very negative standpoint. I mean, I don't mind if it's a full argument. I don't mind if you really know your stuff. So if you're going to knock somebody down, if they're a billionaire or whatever, it's because you really do know the
have
points.
the research, yeah.
But I don't like it when it's generally just cast out because it's been popular on YouTube for a month or so.
Yeah.
But
it's quite a hard question to answer. But the final, so I had that as the final question, and I changed it. I added another question because I always felt that's a negative point to close on, and being benevolent business, I wanted to close on something more positive. So the final question is just, what is one piece of benevolent news that you would like to share to close the podcast with, Natalie and Rebecca? It could be anything in your personal life, it could be about your business, it could be something you read on Instagram.
I wish I'd asked you this before so I could have thought about it.
No.
Good news.
Something good just to close and share and have something positive to end with.
There's so many. I've not gone quiet because there's so many. Oh, I don't want to waste it by saying it's great that Liz Truss has left.
I was
That'd
just
be a
about to
waste.
say, Paul. I was like, hold it back, don't go political.
That's finding a negative and a positive.
It's very current, but I don't want to waste the answer on that.
Especially given that my answer to the previous one was to eradicate the negative.
Yeah.
I want to tell you some really good news.
I know, I'm like, what?
I had a great 40th birthday.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Never good for you.
I had a great 40th birthday. Come on, Paul.
Oh God,
There
my
we
mind's
go.
gone blank about it. I'm trying to think.
You can cut the
Desperately
gaps
trying to think.
out or figure something out.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, I can think of loads, but they're pointless. But
Like what?
it's not news to share with the masses, I don't think. Or just how great Ethan is.
I know, he is
He
amazing.
works for us. He's amazing. Amazing person.
No, that's
Getting
an
that
amazing
Ethan?
thing to
Yeah.
share. Yeah.
He is.
Spread the
Yeah,
light, shine
he
the
is.
light on something. Doing a great job.
Yeah, he is. He's incredible. Oh God, I don't know. Why is this so hard? This is so hard. Honestly, I can't even think of anything. Good news.
The world can't be that dark.
No, it's not. It's just
It
because you
is
have to
though,
think
isn't it?
about
That is the issue. It is.
It's more like, what's relevant? What's something that would be of
I told you to
interest?
share something negative, you'd probably have about 10 things.
Oh.
Well, the economy.
I can do loads of
Politics.
positive. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the fantastic, dog rescue stories. All that's running through my mind right now is the negative, and weirdly, it's all related to Liz Truss.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
That's the human condition, though. The human brain intuitively is concentrating on the negative because it just goes back to ancestral times of when we lived in caves and roamed the land. You would need to concentrate on the negative because your survival depended on it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we actually don't normally occupy like that.
No.
Don't normally work like that. But what I would have probably told you is that we were going to have a Halloween party next week with a human buffet as the centrepiece. I mean, that's great news.
Yeah.
But we've cancelled it.
But it's not going ahead, so yeah.
We've cancelled it because a friend of ours wants to bring her friend, and it's male and it's all a surprise. So I don't want to make the human buffet feel uncomfortable.
With
It's uncomfortable enough, I suppose, being surrounded by people eating off you. So
What's it? What is a human buffet?
explain it,
Basically, it's a person laying on a table, giving up their body for you for the evening to dress them perfectly, beautifully in food and letting people come in and eat off of them. It sounds a bit
That is interesting.
unhygienic, but they
Yeah, it
have
does.
napkins between the food and their body.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I think it was a traditional thing that it was always with sushi, which we have done before.
I had that last year.
Yeah, we had like a butler in the bath come and lay on the dining table, with funky mask on, not much else, a little bit of an apron, and then his whole body was just dressed with food.
Wow.
And the girls just loved it. It was just something different.
Interesting.
And he lay there for 2 hours straight. And just, I was like, don't breathe too hard because
Meditation.
you'll knock this cake off your area. So, yeah. I mean, that's what it is. It's just doing something with not much.
So we're going to push it to a Christmas one.
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
On that note, that's
Yeah, there you go.
I've learned
Yeah.
something.
I'm sorry I couldn't provide you with more good news.
That feels like some
Yeah.
good news.
No
I've
men are
learned
harmed
something.
in the human buffets, everyone. It's a very respectful gathering.
It is a
Very
respectful gathering.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Rebecca, Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. It was a pleasure.